Greetings, everyone. This is Dexter Kendrick, and thank you for tuning back into the all-new Heavenly Body TV here on the Dexter Kendrick Soul channel on YouTube. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Dexter Kendrick Soul channel here on YouTube and Instagram, and Dexter Kendrick Soul on Facebook for more updates and astrological forecasts. This is your place for relevant conversations in that arena. This week, this conversation, and today I'm broadcasting from the very beautiful Maryland University of Integrative Health, the place where practitioners come to learn about the art of healing in yoga therapy, acupuncture, doctorate level acupuncture, as well as herbal medicine, Western medical herbalism. So this is my school that I'm broadcasting from today, and it's my pleasure to be here with you. This week, last Tuesday on October 27th, as I told you, we did have a full moon in Taurus. We were discussing how full moons always bring culmination. They always bring things full circle, and there's always some kind of a climax or turning point. We're going to be discussing much of that in this short, brief conversation today. I'm also going to be discussing what it means for specific signs who've had dynamic movements over the last 2 weeks, and certainly last week. How was your week last week? The energy of this week was brought to you by Venus. But the dynamic with regard to Venus was not necessarily one where Venus was just quiet. It was not a quiet week for many of us. In fact, there were some other planetary aspects that were involved, such as Neptune and Pluto, and like I said, Venus as well. So because the full moon was in Taurus, we have to discuss two aspects. We always talk about how planets are the driving force of the horoscope, and then we also talk about how the signs are the way that the planets express themselves within the horoscope. So we'll discuss that now. Venus, excuse me, as we have already discussed, we already know that Venus is the planet of love, beauty, cooperation, commitments, contractual arrangements, etc. And we've already discussed how she is with regard to relationships. So it always represents how we're relating to other people, to the outside world, how we're also relating to our material possessions and those things that we value. And so the conversation of last week has been a conversation of value. What are our personal beliefs and values, and how is the outside world attempting to influence those things for change? And so let's then begin to talk about how Venus was expressing herself. Right now, Venus is currently in Virgo, but Venus is the natural ruler of two signs in the zodiac, and that one of those signs is Libra, intellectual Libra, and the other sign is physical, earthy, sensual Taurus. And so that's a different conversation outside of the conversation of Libra, which is the idea of value, the idea of love. Taurus is a sign that if they want to touch it, they want to be able to smell it, taste it, feel it. And so their values are core values that help to give them a sense of security. So the conversation was on security with regard to this turning point full moon. And let's before we jump into mythological mode, because I have to drop a gem with regard to Greek mythology, because it helps us to realize the personal human heroic myth that we're all acting out here on Earth. But before we go into that, if we think about Taurus, Taurus is oftentimes depicted as a bull. And if we think about bulls, bulls are pretty slow moving. They mind their own business. If you give them their creature comforts, food, sex, a place to lay down and relax, they aren't bothered. But if you irritate them or agitate them, they have extreme distress, and they will act out under extreme distress. And so that's the essence of Taurus. And the moon being in Taurus, of course, the moon, when it's full, always shows us some aspect of ourselves that has to be addressed and has to be reconciled. Remember, as I always say, the sun is the driving force of the horoscope. Last week, we talked about the sun's movement into Scorpio. We didn't have a chance to get comfortable in Scorpio. As soon as the sun moved in Scorpio, the moon was already saying, bam, booyah, this is the conversation that we're in, and it's time to make some decisions, time to make some changes. Full moons always usher in a change that has been brewing for the last 2 weeks. We discussed that. I highly recommend, if you haven't taken a look at my conversation that was on the new moon, excuse me, that was in Libra, follow that conversation. Bring yourself up to speed. If you haven't followed the conversation on the sun's movement into Scorpio that I did last week, please update yourself on that so you can understand the dynamic of the Scorpio season that we're in right now until until November 22nd. That's the energy we'll be living under until the 22nd. So update yourself so that you can jump into this conversation. This is a saga. A horoscope is a saga. The drama of our lives is constantly moving, and we're constantly having to come into alignment with that. Moving forward, so as I was saying, mythologically, Venus is ruled by Taurus is ruled by Venus. But we'll go into the myth with regard to our good friend Pluto and his sister Demeter. So Demeter essentially was the goddess of the seasons. So what she ended up doing was she was the goddess of course, fertility with regard to nature. She was the goddess of nature and fields and our harvests, things that we are able to plant and reap from the earth itself, those physical creature comforts, which is what we were discussing. And so in that way, she had a daughter, and her daughter's name was Persephone. Her daughter went into a field one day, picked up a fruit, which was a pomegranate, ate the seeds, and then Demeter's brother, abducted Persephone. Of course, Hades, who was also her uncle, came up from the underworld and kidnapped her, raped her, made her his wife, and took her into the underworld. Now, mind you, her mother was extremely distressed. Her mother, Demeter, the ruler of seasons, who I'm associating and attributing with Taurus, the sign of Taurus, of course, her job was to make sure that life was very bountiful. But when she went to Zeus, her brother, the ruler of the gods, and said, your brother has kidnapped my daughter and taken her into an underworld, this place where I will not be able to see her. Please undo that curse. She saw it as a curse. And Zeus said, he's a god. I can't undo what he has done, but I can make a compromise. And so what ended up happening was they compromised and said that the amount of seeds that Persephone ate from the pomegranate she took from the earth would be the amount of time she would spend in the underworld, and that the other months of the year she could spend back here on earth with the rest of the living. And so they made that agreement. But much like in true Taurus fashion, Persephone said, well, that's fine, but I am going to be in grief. I'm going to be grieving the sudden change that has been thrust upon me. And in so doing, for the 6 months that my daughter is gone into the underworld, I will bring a frost. I will not bring the sunshine to the earth. The earth you will have to do it the best you can, because I'll be going through a grieving period. And at that time, I'll be feeling a little cold and raw about the fact that my daughter is not in my presence and that she was ripped out of my hands. Her childhood has been ripped away. And so what ends up happening in Greek mythology is she brings winter. She brings fall, and then she brings winter when Persephone has to go live in the underworld. And that's where we're at now, right? It's October. It's getting a little chilly. Mythologically, Demeter is said to be in her grieving state. And so what that means, if we think about Taurus, Taurus is one of the four fixed signs. There's Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. Those 4 signs are said to be signs that have extreme gumption, determination. They're very good at finishing projects. They may not be good at starting projects, but they're good at finishing projects. And they are not comfortable with their determination, etc., and having the rug pulled out from underneath of them, because they're good at what they know. They learn something, they learn it well, they become enmeshed in it. But when life changes the rules on them, they begin to get a little irritated and agitated, just as Demeter did. And they can be quite cold and quite unabashedly assertive, aggressive, rigid, and sharp with other people. Anybody who's interacted with a Taurus who's been rubbed the wrong way will identify with that. They see red. Anybody who's identified with a Leo, an Aquarius, or a Scorpio who has been rubbed the wrong way, or the rules have been changed and things are out of control for them for a period of time, you will see that showing up. Moving forward, this full moon had an energy. What was the energy like last week? It certainly wasn't a calm energy, was it? It was an energy of excitement. There was a sextile, to Neptune, which is the planet of sudden realizations, but also the illusions that we may perhaps have been living under. And so there has been an energy of surprise over this last full moon. Let's talk about it with regard to some specific signs, and then I'll kind of wrap this up and prepare you for next week's conversation, which is going to be an interesting one as well. So for the fixed signs, what did this full moon mean? For Leo, this month, Leo, until November 22nd. It's going to be a period of change and stepping up to the plate. This is a 90-degree square angle for you, especially with regard to your responsibilities in the outside world. There might be some professional conversations that seem to show up. There also seems to be some conversations that are coming up with regard to your shared finances and resources. So you may have to be doing a conversation regarding budgeting and money that is owed to other people or money that is owed to you. Looks like there's some things that are going to be coming up that you perhaps had not known about previously that now are going to be important that you take care of. The square always represents people and circumstances that force us to prove ourselves and or make necessary changes. Of course, once again, Pluto, this is Pluto season. We cannot seem to get away from Pluto right now, which is okay, but there is a gradual breakdown regarding the usage of your finances and the monies that is owed to other people. You're going to have to get on top of your spending. You're going to have to get on top of your responsibilities with regard to shared resources and finances, and there seems to be some kind of breakdown happening with some kind of arrangement that you have with other people or even another person, better yet. So you're going to have to get on top of that. This full moon is going to show you where that is important. Of course, Venus is currently in Virgo, so if there is a gradual breakdown happening right now in the area of work. So it might be something with your job. Perhaps your job is not fulfilling you so much right now. Perhaps there's some health issues that need to be tackled because there's a gradual breakdown in some area. You're going to have to make some certain shifts. Life is going to be pushing you in that direction, and I understand that while it might be uncomfortable for you to have change thrust upon you, if you do not make these changes, you're going to find, especially next month, that it's going to be extremely difficult for you to make certain changes, to honor certain truths in your relationship. So we're not just talking about financial issues, but we're also talking about joint values. So if you're in a relationship and both of you are having a agreement to disagree, you're going to have to begin to lean upon yourself, because next month is going to be requiring some significant truth-telling in that arena. Aquarius, for you, there's a conversation regarding home, something regarding home life, perhaps children, perhaps spouses, something about the home and taking care of home, perhaps even a relocation. But it looks like at this month you're going to be taking a look at circumstances are perhaps not meeting your needs effectively. You're going to have to be taking a look at how they're showing you, where you're going to have to step up to the plate or make some necessary changes. If you're finding that it's irreconcilable, your current circumstances, it looks like it's in regard to money or financial issues or in some aspect of healing, perhaps some kind of medical or medicinal procedure or something like that. But it also includes money. It seems like money is necessary for you to take care of some business that needs to be taken care of with regard to home. And if you're not getting it where you're at, life is beginning to show you that you're going to have to make something happen elsewhere. And it might mean that you're going to have to uproot yourself. The fourth house always represents home. So it might mean that you're going to have to uproot yourself and start looking in that arena. This full moon is not a lunar eclipse. And so with that being said, it does not have the power of several months' time to make those changes. Right now, it's just planting a seed. Certainly, you're beginning to see something, and it's starting to move you in a certain direction. As I said before, full moons always represent turning points, climaxes, when we begin to work with the energy that was planted 2 weeks ago, of course, when the new moon was in Libra. So I highly recommend you go back and take a look at that video if you have not seen it. Moving forward, the earth signs, Taurus, Capricorn, and Virgo. Taurus, this is your full moon. Every year we celebrate the Taurian energy. This year the energy has come with an element of surprise. There is some shifting and changing. The sextile, the 60-degree angle that the moon made to Neptune, means that circumstances are showing up with an opportunity to make some necessary changes. Looks like that opportunity has come with regard to groups. It might be the family group. It might be your group of friends. It might be some group or organization that you are involved in. But there seems to be some kind of opportunity that presents itself for you to be of service, keeping in mind that Virgo is the sign of service with regard to work, things that are working, things that are not working. But it looks like you either are going to be coming in to help somebody who is a child, or you might be helping somebody, you might be acting in a capacity that takes over from another child who's handling somebody else's affairs. It looks like there's a spirit of service that is coming up over the last week, where you're able to help somebody who is in desperate need. There is also a breakdown with regard to you. There seems to be something showing up. Life is trying to teach you something and provide you some kind of opportunity to expand your perspective and actually get what you want, what you have asked for in your prayers. for those of you who are spiritual. All of us desire something. Where we send those requests is up to you. Nonetheless,